Buenos días. Gracias.
Good morning. Thank you for coming. My name is Sebastián Gómez. I work for GeneXus in the Department of Research and Development. During the next half hour, I'm going to tell you about the new Windows generator, the Windows 10. But I would like to go back a little, not so far back as 1855, but last year. Last year I had to make a presentation during the GX24 about the Windows Phone, the state of the platform, etc., the generator, and the day before Microsoft was going to make a presentation announcing Windows 10. And I was a bit nervous about this because they were going to announce that Windows 10 was going to run on cell phones, and I was going to speak about Windows phones the next day. So I was concerned that they may announce that what we were doing was useless. Well, the announcement was made, and what we were doing was indeed useful. Terry Merson, this gentleman you see here, is the head of the Windows group in Microsoft, and he announced Windows 10. The first thing that attracted our attention was the name, because the previous one was 8.1, and we would have expected 9, or a name like XP or Vista, but they decided to call it Windows 10. And another novelty was the devices. There's from a microcontroller to the giant screen for meetings, going through the PC, the mobile phone, 2-in-1, tablets, etc. Another announcement, luckily, was that the road for developers towards Windows 10 was universal applications for Windows 8 and 8.1, which is what we were doing. So I felt comfortable that we were on the right path. Another announcement he made, which was also important, was that the next day we would be able to download a preview of the Windows 10. He announced a software called Windows Insider, a program in which you can register so as to enter the process of Windows 10. Obviously, I registered, I downloaded it, installed it, and I have a virtual machine under development. That's why I downloaded it, and it started working well. What you see here is an application for the insiders in which Microsoft receives feedback on the status of Windows, errors one may find, a lot of social aspects, achievements, etc., things they thought one should do and validate whether they were easy or not or efficient, and one could also vote about the feedback other users gave. So much so that there was a very special case. There were people who were complaining about this icon, the recycling basket. They wanted something more minimalistic. It had too much transparency, too much shine. Microsoft listened to them, and they launched this icon, which seemed designed by a child. And then the community got together and said that this icon was no good. No one liked it. So they launched another icon, which, if you ask me, is the one I prefer, or the one they're using today. Some people say it's not exactly the same, but I can't see any difference. Another case, which was interesting in my opinion, was that Windows 10 now has several desktops. I can run several applications at the same time in different desktops, and they didn't know whether in the taskbar where I have the applications that are running, the user would want to have the applications of the desktop in which they were, or all of the applications that were running. So through Twitter, the users voted, and said what they preferred. Finally, it was decided that people want to see the application they have on the desktop, but since the votes were almost even, it is possible to change the configuration. Coming to Windows 10, from the point of view of the user, one thing that came back was the start menu. We had it since Windows 95, and it came back to Windows 10. It is a natural evolution for those who come from Windows 7, because it's quite similar. It has the Metro applications, the one that run on the full screen. And this is an application for the weather. It's a universal application, the one you download from the store, the ones that Windows 8 run on the full screen. Now they run on Windows. Now we have the window on window, which is where we operate. And I don't know whether this is noticeable, but believe me, at the top we have the icons that you expect to see: minimize, maximize, close, etc. Another novelty is that it came with a new browser called Edge. It's not Internet Explorer. Some people say that it's Internet Explorer in disguise, but I don't think it's so, and it works well in my computer. I haven't seen the need to download another one. I also attended the Apple conference in live streaming in my computer. Another interesting feature is that it has the Cortana assistant. Cortana seems to be a toy, but it's the equivalent to Siri in Apple, for example, and it's the voice assistant that Windows Phone has had for some time. The interesting thing is that when you run it in the desktop, you can talk to it. There is an icon with a microphone, even if you can't see it, and it has a very useful application. You can execute tasks very quickly without having to open an application. For example, here I want to send my wife an email, and it asks me which is the subject, what's the message, and it sends the email. I don't need to open the email of the browser in order to send an email. And it has some applications like this one which are interesting. Now, from the point of view of the developer, the greatest change is what Eduardo Mangarelli said on Monday: the convergence of operating systems. The core of all systems got together on Windows 10. This PPT is taken from one of the conferences in which this was announced. Microsoft had the line of the Xbox, which was an NLT, then the Windows line, and Windows Phone, which already had some points in common. And in Windows 10, they all converge in a single core. And there's a yellow line added, which is Windows on device, the version that runs on microcontrollers, etc. What does this mean? For other companies like Apple and Google, well, Google had the Google TV, now they have the Android TV, now they have the Chrome OS, they had the Chromecast, and Apple has OS X, TV OS, and Watch OS. It has all that. And although they have some points in common, they also have differences, and they would require different applications or extensions of applications in order to be able to run them in one place or the other. I don't want to look at Fabian, maybe I'm making some mistake, but anyway, I'm going to continue. And Windows manages to bring all this together, and for the first time we have a core, an operating system which is in a core which allows an application to run or to be installed in different kinds of devices. Another relevant announcement which caused a lot of noise, what Microsoft called the bridges, to take applications which were already developed in other platforms to the Windows 10 platform. Microsoft says that it's going to have 1 billion devices with Windows 10, counting the whole range of devices. I don't know whether this is going to be the actual figure, neither do they, but it's going to be big and a very interesting opportunity. 1 month after its release, as Eduardo said, they have 75 million activations, and now it's in more PCs than Mac OS, which is something that surprised me because I have lately seen an explosion of Macs, but the Windows 10 has already reached a higher number of installations. With regard to the Windows 10, the web means to put in a package an existing web application, a site, inside a store application. I have my website. Let's see, for example, games. That's a demo they do. I have a game online, HTML, and I package it in something that can be in the store so that the user of Windows 10 can download it in their PC. But it's not a frame that actually runs in the sites. It's the application that is running in my device. I even have access to the SDK from Windows and everything from Apple, and it's useful because I have Apple Chase and everything else. Secondly, the same thing but for .NET and Win32 applications, and the idea is to package one of the existing applications among the WinForm applications we have. GeneXus is one of them, and then someone can buy and download GeneXus from the store of Windows 10. This is just an example. Then something that was a novelty. There were rumors that it would be possible to run Android applications in Windows Phone. What Microsoft did was to create the virtual machine for Android, and it can be run in Windows Phone. So I can take a compiled application for Android and execute it in a Windows Phone. There's a big disclaimer in this regard. And if I have a Google service, I have to change to Microsoft services. It's not very direct, but anyway, it's feasible. And in some cases, it is more direct than in others. And then the iOS. It would seem that it's the same thing than for Android, but it's quite different. Because in the case of Android, I continue working with Android Studio or whatever I use to develop Android applications, and in this case Microsoft incorporates a language which is natural for its development tool in order to create applications that are universal. Therefore, I can write universal apps, the ones that run in any device, in Objective-C. It also has an add-in which allows me to open a project in Xcode in Visual Studio and compile it to be run with a native window application. And if I already have an Objective-C code, I may be in need of some changes, some amendments, depending on the complexity of what I'm using and what Microsoft has already covered with the API in Windows. We always think that the best application for a platform is the native application. That is why we have generators, 4 generators, and not just one. We don't have hybrid applications that can run in any kind of device. That is why we're going to continue along this path of having native applications, as we did for Windows 8, Windows Phones, and now for Windows 10. What happened this year? almost the right time on the screen. So what happens today, September 30 at 11:15? Today in GeneXus we're going to be working along two lines. One that is already on the street, has already been released, which is Evolution 3, which is already at its 4th upgrade. And here we have both generators, Windows 8 and Windows Phone. I can create the same application for both platforms and upload them in the store, but it's two binaries. If you want to download the application and have it available for Windows 8, you have to go to the Windows 8 store, and same thing for the Windows Phone. This is the type of application we get for Windows Phone and for Windows 8. Now, with Salto, we are going to have just one generator, the Windows generator that is going to generate for Windows 10. That's the name nowadays. Microsoft says it's the last one. We are going to call it Windows Generator, and it's going to produce a single binary, which is the one that is going to be uploaded in the store, and that is what is going to be installed in every device in which I'm running Windows 10. The advantage is that we win because Windows 10 is going to run in several devices. There was a presentation by Marcelo Luz and Rodolfo Roballo in which they showed an application that was produced by this generator. And now I'm going to run the risk of showing you the first application.
Ahí va, ¿no? Ahí, ¿aparece? Sí. Se ve grande. Esto es Find My Plane, generado por el generador.
This is Find a Plane, which is created by the Windows 10 generator. Here we have an application under execution. You see that this is a new way of surfing, new for Windows, but in Android and iOS it already existed. It was not used in Windows before, now it has started appearing, and we have the possibility of adding it. And this facilitates the passage of an application that we already have in Android or iOS to Windows. Another thing I wanted to show you I have to enter here a flight number, but it looks really big. I wanted to show you that this application adapts to the layout in which it's being executed. And I'm trying to make it smaller. Let's see if I can move it around and make it smaller. This is an application which has a layout that when it becomes smaller changes. You see that the size of the letters changes and the whole layout changes too. How do you achieve this? Well, in GeneXus Salto we have the new generator and also new layouts for this generator. We have a new platform, which is Windows, and we have Windows Phone, Windows Tablet, and Windows Desktop. It's the same panel, but the layout changes according to the device, landscape or Windows Phone, and thus the application adapts. And this means that when the application runs on a mobile phone, we'll look with the layout that I showed you at the end. And when we see it in the PC, it's going to look like the first view I showed you. Now, with regard to the future, this is the son of Martin McFly from Back to the Future 2, and he was also always using these lenses that helped him interact with the devices they had at home, the telephone, etc. Microsoft announced last year this HoloLens, which is a virtual increased reality lens. And it's not like the Google Glass of Microsoft. It's quite different. Firstly, because Microsoft doesn't want us to walk on the streets with this kind of glasses, but also because this device also runs Windows 10. I don't need to have a telephone nearby, it runs by itself, and I can run the applications like the ones I just showed you. Now, what am I going to see? This is a demo that was made during the last conference of developers, and here we see this man using the lenses, and you see that there are applications that are running on the walls. You see them there because both himself and the camera have HoloLenses. This was done live, and in the middle there's Skype, and he can get up and manipulate the window, take it out of there, put it on another wall, and here we could put the application that I just showed you. We could put it on a wall and interact with it. Now there's a different kind of applications, and they are much more interesting. They can take more advantage of the HoloLens. This is a project that Microsoft has with NASA that helps scientists make projections, and they use images that the robots send, and they feel like they are walking on Mars. So this is much easier than seeing the images on the screen. And they were so committed to this project that in June this year, Microsoft, with SpaceX and the NASA, launched the Falcon 9, which was going to the special station. It was unmanned, but unfortunately it didn't make it. It was carrying 2 HoloLens to be used by the astronauts. Now they lie at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, and the astronauts will have to wait. Now there's another field for these applications, and it's very interesting. This is the Minecraft game. I don't know whether you know it. I know that it's quite popular, and I've never played it. But I wonder whether you can play like this because you are no longer a spectator. You are really inside the game. There have been several demos of this game, and they are very interesting. I don't know whether there are any Minecraft players in the room. If that's the case, I imagine what they must be thinking. But it's not available yet. Microsoft has alliances with some universities, and there will be a developer preview of the HoloLens next year. So hopefully by next year we'll be able to bring the lens here, and we'll make a demo for you. So to sum up, we have a roadmap of what we are going to be doing with the Windows 10 generator. No, rather with the Windows generator, not the Windows 10. And this is our timeline, which is quite bold. We want the beta 1 by November 2015, then a beta 2 by March 2016. Hopefully they will be released in July. And then in September we will be able to tell you about the offline event. Don't take pictures of this timeline, please. What's next? Eduardo spoke about everything that Microsoft is doing. It took place on Monday. And yesterday, Marcelo Aguiluz and Rodolfo Roballo showed an application which is already for sale. It's produced by a generation which is already in the Salto bits, and they can be downloaded from gxtechnical.com/Salto, and there you can have access to the forum, the documentation, etc. So with this, I say goodbye. This is a hashtag of this presentation. We can continue our conversation in the halls during the rest of the day. Thank you.